Please don't forget subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified of new daily videos.
I never really thought much about gardens before Melody. My wife, Melody Sweet, she had a green thumb that was more like a green obsession. When we bought the old colonial on Sycamore Lane, it wasn't just the spacious rooms or the good school district that sold her, it was the sprawling, overgrown yard. "Colby," she'd said, her eyes alight, "this isn't just a yard, this is potential. This is a canvas." My son, Zayn, and my daughter, Ximena, were just happy about the tree's swing. Me. I was happy Melody was happy. We'd been in the house about 3 months. Melody had already transformed half the yard into a riot of color and fragrance. Roses climbed the trellis I'd built, snapdragons exploded in vibrant beds, and she was always bringing home something new. Our kids, Zayn, who is 10 years old, and Ximena, who is 7 years old, loved helping her, though mostly they just dug holes and made mud pies. It was a good life. A little messy, a little hectic, but good. Then came the incident with the roadside nursery. Melody had been looking for something unique, something with character, as she put it. She came back beaming, clutching a small, rather ugly pot. Inside was a scrawny, dark-leaved vine she called the shadow creeper. Said she got it from an old woman with strange, calloused hands who swore it only bloomed under a full moon. I just chuckled and told her to put it wherever she wanted. A week later, I noticed a strange mark on Melody's wrist. It looked like a tiny puncture, surrounded by a faint, purplish bruise. "What happened here, love?" I asked, gently touching it. She pulled her hand back a little too quickly. "Oh, just a thorn," she said, waving it off. "That shadow creeper has some bite to it." She smiled, a bit too wide, and changed the subject. I didn't think much of it then. Gardeners get pricked all the time. But that thorn mark didn't heal. Instead, it seemed to spread, not as a bruise, but as a network of faint, greenish lines just beneath her skin. They snaked up her arm, thin as capillaries, pulsing faintly if you looked close enough. She started wearing long sleeves, even in the summer heat, claiming she was sensitive to the sun. Her appetite changed too. She started picking at her food, barely touching the gourmet meals she used to love to cook. But I'd catch her in the garden, sometimes after dark, kneeling in the damp earth, a strange, faraway look in her eyes. I once saw her pick up a handful of rich, dark soil and sniff it deeply, almost hungrily. "Smells like life, Colby," she'd whispered, a rasp I hadn't heard before in her voice. "Pure, unadulterated life." I remember it chilled me, just for a second, but then I laughed it off. "You're a true dirt worshipper, aren't you?" Zayn was the first to voice concern. "Dad," he said one evening, his voice small, "Mommy looks different." Ximena nodded, her eyes wide. "Her skin, it looks like the trees outside." I told them not to be silly, that Mommy was just tired, maybe a little stressed. But even I couldn't ignore the way Melody's once smooth skin was starting to develop a subtle, almost imperceptible texture like fine bark. Her hair, once a vibrant auburn, seemed duller, almost brittle. And her eyes. They had always been a warm, hazel brown. Now, under certain lights, I swore I saw a faint, unsettling shimmer of green in their depths. Our neighbor, Kurt Thompson, tried to talk to me too. He cornered me by the mailbox one Tuesday morning. "Colby, old man," he began, "your wife. Is she all right? I saw her out in the yard at 3 a.m., just standing there, staring at the new vine. And her eyes, son. There was something off about her eyes." I told Kurt to mind his own business, that Melody was fine, just a dedicated gardener. But the incident gnawed at me. Then one morning, our cat Jasper was gone. We searched everywhere. Zayn and Ximena cried for days. Melody was strangely calm, almost distant. "He probably just wandered off, kids," she'd said, patting Ximena's head with a hand that felt oddly rough. Later that week, I found a patch of disturbed earth near the shadow creeper vine, and a faint, sweet, cloying smell that made my stomach churn. I covered it quickly, telling myself it was nothing, just some animal digging. The house plants started dying. Not just wilting, but shriveling, turning black and brittle, as if all the moisture had been sucked right out of them. Melody, the woman who could revive a nearly dead orchid, just watched them, an unreadable expression on her face. "They weren't strong enough," she'd murmur, almost to herself. One night I woke to a scratching sound. It was coming from Melody's side of the bed. I turned, and there she was, sitting upright, her face illuminated by the moonlight streaming through the window. Her fingers, now noticeably thicker, almost knobby, were raking across her own arm. Where her skin had been, there was now a rough, fissured bark, and from the cracks, a fine, greenish dust seemed to drift. Her eyes, those green-tinged, cloudy eyes, were fixed on me, and her mouth. It was slightly open, a dark, moist cavern from which I could hear a faint, almost imperceptible rasping, like roots tearing through soil. My blood ran cold. The denial, the excuses, the convenient blindness I'd clung to for weeks, it all shattered in that moment. That wasn't my Melody, not anymore. I scrambled back, hitting the headboard. She tilted her head, a slow, deliberate movement like a plant tracking the sun. "Colby," she rasped, her voice thick, guttural, "you look fertile." Terror seized me. I threw myself out of bed, fumbling for the lamp, anything. The light clicked on, harsh and unforgiving, revealing the horror. Her entire left arm was now encased in a thick, woody bark. Dark, almost black tendrils had begun to sprout from her scalp, twisting through her thinning hair. Her fingers, gnarled and powerful, ended in blunt, root-like tips. Her lips were cracked, dry, pulled back to reveal teeth that had elongated, sharpened, like the thorns of a monstrous rose. "Melody," I choked out. What are you?" She didn't answer. She rose from the bed, a slow, rustling sound accompanying her movement, like dry leaves scuttering across a path. She stalked towards me, her head cocked, her eyes boring into mine, not with love, but with an ancient vegetative hunger. A single, thick vine, pulsing with a faint greenish light, slithered from beneath her nightgown, curling around her ankle. It looked exactly like the shadow creeper in the garden. "You're going to feed the garden, Colby," she whispered, her voice a chorus of dry leaves and cracking earth. Her hand shot out, no longer human, but a branch-like appendage, grasping my arm with shocking strength. I felt a sharp, burning pain as tiny, needle-like thorns erupted from her touch, piercing my skin. I screamed, pulling away, tearing free with a sickening rip. Zayn and Ximena, roused by my scream, appeared at the bedroom door, their faces pale with terror. "Mommy!" Ximena cried, but Melody didn't even glance at them. Her focus was entirely on me, on the fresh blood welling from my arm. The vine from her nightgown was now snaking rapidly across the floor, extending towards my feet. "Run!" I roared, shoving the kids back. Get out of the house." What happened next is a blur of adrenaline and primal fear. I remember the smell of damp earth and decay filling the room, the sound of splintering wood as she slammed me against the wall. I remember her face, no longer beautiful, but a grotesque mask of bark and green filaments, her eyes burning with an otherworldly light. I somehow managed to grab the heavy ceramic lamp from the nightstand and brought it down on her with all my might. There was a sickening crack, like dry wood snapping, and she recoiled, a low, hissing sound escaping her throat. That was my chance. I shoved past her, grabbed Zayn and Ximena, and dragged them out of the house. We ran, screaming, across the lawn, not looking back. Our neighbor, Kurt, must have heard the commotion. He was already on his porch, a shotgun in his hands, staring wide-eyed at our house. The police came, of course, and the ambulance for my arm, which was bleeding profusely. They found the house in disarray, shattered furniture, strange green residue on the walls. They found things in the garden, patches of soil that looked unnaturally disturbed, some with strange, fibrous growths, but they didn't find Melody. They called it a psychotic break, said she must have fled in a delusional state. Dr. Inau, the trauma counselor, kept talking about shared psychosis and coping mechanisms. I played along. What was I supposed to tell them? That my wife turned into a walking plant monster, that she tried to drain me like a succulent? They'd lock me up. We moved, of course, far away. The kids are still scared. They don't talk about it, but I see it in their eyes when they look at a house plant or smell damp soil. I try to make them feel safe. I've sealed up every window, checked every floorboard. I've even started a new routine, walking the perimeter of our new property every night, a heavy flashlight in hand. But I still dream of the garden, of Melody, twisted and beautiful in her horror. And sometimes in the deepest part of the night, when the wind whispers through the trees, I swear I can hear it. A faint, distant rasping sound, like roots growing. And sometimes, just sometimes, I catch a faint, sweet, cloying smell on the breeze, the smell of life, pure, unadulterated life. And I wonder, is she tending a new garden somewhere? Is she waiting to bloom again? I check the locks twice, sometimes 3 times, before I go to bed. And I never ever let a single houseplant cross my threshold.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button to like it. And please do subscribe to support the channel.